You feel like an alien in your own world. Every conversation feels surface level. Every social norm seems arbitrary. And the things everyone else values feel completely meaningless to you. Carl Jung knew exactly why spiritual awakening doesn't free you from society. It makes you incompatible with it. He called this the burden of consciousness, and he believed it was the inevitable price of psychological development in a world built for unconsciousness. Today I'm revealing Jung's reasons why spiritually awakened people can barely function in modern society. Reasons that explain why you feel exhausted by normal life, isolated despite being surrounded by people, and unable to care about what everyone else finds important. Here's what Jung discovered. Modern civilization is specifically structured to maintain what he called collective unconsciousness. These are shared illusions that allow society to function smoothly. When you awaken, you lose the ability to participate in these illusions. You haven't failed at life. You've succeeded at consciousness. And consciousness makes normal life feel impossible. The first reason reveals why everything feels so exhausting. Your psyche operates on a different frequency. Jung discovered that awakened individuals undergo what he called a psychological frequency shift. Your entire nervous system recalibrates to perceive subtler dimensions of reality. But modern life operates only through crude stimulation and surface interaction. It's like developing the ability to hear ultrasonic frequencies while being forced to live in a world of jackhammers. Here's what this frequency shift means. Before awakening, your psyche filtered out most information. Unconscious dynamics, energy fields, collective emotions, and subtle meanings. This filtering allowed you to function in consensus reality without being totally overwhelmed. But awakening removes these filters. Suddenly, you're perceiving everything, the unspoken tensions in every room, the unconscious motivations behind every word, and the energy dynamics that others don't even know exist. Jung wrote, "The awakened person perceives what others cannot see, feels what others do not feel, knows what others do not know." This expanded conversation. You're also navigating energy dynamics. While performing routine tasks, you're processing collective unconscious material. While maintaining social roles, you're aware of their artificial nature. Jung called this multi-level functioning, and it requires enormous energy. The frequency shift also means that what nourishes others depletes you. Small talk doesn't just bore you, it actively drains your energy. Loud entertainment doesn't relax you, it agitates your refined nervous system. Social media doesn't connect you, it fragments your consciousness. The stimulation that keeps others engaged feels like a salt to your awakened sensitivity. Jung observed that awakened individuals often develop what appear to be sensitivities or even disabilities. Chronic fatigue that's actually energy depletion from constant multi-level processing. Social anxiety that's actually accurate perception of unconscious dynamics. Depression that's actually grief for the collective unconscious state. These aren't weaknesses, they're the natural result of heightened perception in an unconscious world. The frequency difference extends to time perception. Jung noted that awakened people often feel like they're living in slow motion compared to others. You need more time to process because you're processing more dimensions. A 5-minute conversation might require an hour of internal integration. A day of normal work might demand 3 days of recovery. You're not slow, you're thorough in a world that values speed over depth. This creates practical problems. Jung identified career challenges arise because most jobs require sustained operation at society's crude frequency.
Relationship difficulties emerge because finding others who operate at similar frequencies is rare. Health issues develop from the constant stress of frequency mismatch. Financial struggles occur because the activities that generate money often require frequency compromise. But this frequency shift serves a purpose Jung considered essential. The second insight cuts deep. You see through the games everyone is playing. Awakened individuals develop what he called game sight, the ability to see through the unconscious games that structure all human interaction. But here's the problem. These games are precisely how society functions. When you can't unsee them, you can't genuinely play them.
Makes genuine participation impossible. One becomes like an actor who suddenly sees the stage, the audience, and the artifice of the play, while still being expected to perform. The games Jung identified are everywhere. Professional environments operate through dominance hierarchies that everyone pretends are merit-based. Social gatherings function through comparison and competition, disguised as connection. Romantic relationships often involve projection exchanges marketed as love. Friendships frequently center on mutual validation rather than authentic connection. Even spiritual communities play games of evolved identity and competitive consciousness. What makes this so isolating is that you see these games but can't point them out. Naming the game destroys the game, and people need their games to feel secure. So you're left with impossible choices. Pretend not to see what you see, which feels like self-betrayal, or acknowledge what you see and become the enemy of everyone's comfort. Jung observed that awakened people often feel like anthropologists in their own culture. You observe human behavior with the detachment of someone studying a foreign species. The rituals that create belonging, office parties, social media engagement, consumer celebrations, feel like elaborate performances you can analyze but not authentically join. The game site extends to language itself. Jung noted that awakened individuals often struggle with conventional communication because they see how words are used to hide rather than reveal. "How are you?" isn't really a question. "I'm fine" isn't really an answer. Business speak, social pleasantries, even intimate conversations often involve saying everything except what's actually true. This creates what Jung called the authenticity dilemma. Your awakened consciousness demands authentic expression, but authentic expression disrupts the games that others need for psychological safety. You become what Jung termed a walking disruption. Your mere presence threatens the unconscious agreements that allow others to avoid their own awakening. Yet, seeing through games isn't the only challenge awakened people face. Success has become meaningless to you. Jung discovered that spiritual awakening fundamentally inverts your value system. What society calls success, wealth, status, achievement, becomes what Jung called sophisticated power. Jung wrote, "The awakened person faces a terrible freedom. This is freedom from the collective value system that organizes most human activity. But this freedom comes with a price. The inability to find meaning in what drives everyone else. This value inversion manifests in practical struggles." Jung documented, "You can't motivate yourself to pursue promotions that mean nothing to you. Networking feels like meaningless theater. Building wealth seems pointless when you've found inner richness. Competition appears absurd when you see everyone as expressions of the same consciousness. The entire economic game loses its power to engage you." What's particularly challenging is that society has no framework for your new values. There's no career path for consciousness expansion, no social status for shadow integration, no economic reward for authentic presence. You've developed capacities that have no market value. Wisdom, that generates no income, and achievements that earn no recognition. Jung identified what he called the economic paradox of awakening. The more spiritually developed you become, the less economically valuable you appear. Your capacity for presence doesn't show up on resumes. Your ability to hold space for transformation isn't a marketable skill. Your deep understanding of human psychology doesn't translate to business metrics. This creates survival challenges. Jung observed that awakened individuals often struggle financially, not from inability, but from an inability to care about money-generating activities. The consciousness that would make you an extraordinary healer, teacher, or guide has no clear path to economic sustainability. You're wealthy in ways that don't pay rent. The value inversion also affects relationships. Others can't understand why you're not excited about their promotion, why you don't care about social media metrics, or why material achievements don't impress you. Your lack of enthusiasm for collective values gets interpreted as judgment, depression, or failure, rather than transcendence. Jung noted that awakened people often experience what he called reverse imposter syndrome, feeling like you're pretending to care about.
Reveal why Jung believed awakened souls serve a crucial evolutionary purpose. The third reason is simple and cruel. You can't return to unconscious comfort. Jung discovered a particularly difficult aspect of awakening. Once consciousness expands, it can't voluntarily contract. You can't unknow what you know, unsee what you've seen, or unfeel what you've felt. Jung called this the irreversibility of consciousness, and it means you're permanently exiled from the unconscious comfort that makes modern life bearable for most people. Here's what this irreversibility means. Before awakening, unconsciousness provided what Jung called merciful blindness, the ability to not see suffering, to not feel others' pain, or to not recognize life's absurdity. This blindness wasn't a weakness but psychological protection that made normal life possible. Awakening removes this protection permanently, leaving you exposed to truths that can't be forgotten. Jung wrote, "The return to unconsciousness is the one journey that cannot be taken. The awakened person is like someone who has seen behind the curtain of reality. They cannot pretend the curtain is solid again, no matter how much simpler that pretense would make their life." This irreversibility manifests in painful ways Jung documented. You can't enjoy mindless entertainment because you see its manipulation. You can't engage in gossip because you feel the person's pain being discussed. You can't participate in collective anger because you understand the projection involved. You can't share in material excitement because you know its emptiness. What makes this particularly difficult is watching others enjoy what you can't. They find comfort in distractions that agitate you. They feel security in illusions you see through. They experience belonging through activities that isolate you. You're like someone who's become allergic to the very air everyone else breathes naturally. Jung identified what he called conscious suffering, the unavoidable pain of seeing clearly in a world that depends on blindness. You see the suffering others create unconsciously. You understand the patterns they're trapped in. You recognize the potential they're not living. But you can't help, because helping would require them to see what they're not ready to see. The irreversibility extends to your own coping mechanisms. Jung observed
more difficult than unconscious existence. Jung emphasized that this isn't regression or depression. It's the natural consequence of expanded awareness. You're not broken for being unable to return to unconscious comfort. You're evolved beyond the need for unconscious protection. Yet, there's one final reason that encompasses all the others. You're living in the wrong era. Jung's final insight is perhaps the most profound.
Awakened individuals are what he called transitional beings, psychologically evolved beyond current society, but born before the society that would support such evolution exists. You're literally living in the wrong era, carrying tomorrow's consciousness in today's world. Here's what Jung understood. Human consciousness evolves, and some individuals evolve faster than the collective. These early evolvers experience what Jung called temporal displacement, being psychologically suited for a future that hasn't arrived yet. You have capacities that won't be valued for generations, awareness that won't be common for decades, understanding that society isn't ready to receive. Jung wrote, "The individuated person is ahead of their time, not chronologically, but psychologically. They embody the future of human consciousness while still having to function in the present, unconscious structures." This temporal displacement manifests in specific ways Jung identified. The skills you've developed, emotional integration, shadow work, conscious relationship, have no place in current institutions. The wisdom you've gained through awakening has no platform for expression in existing structures. The consciousness you embody threatens rather than serves current systems. You're like someone with advanced technology in a pre-industrial society. Your psychological development is so far beyond the norm that it appears as dysfunction rather than evolution. What should be recognized as advanced capacity gets diagnosed as disorder. What should be valued as wisdom gets dismissed as impracticality. Jung observed that awakened individuals often feel what he called evolutionary loneliness, the isolation of being at the leading edge of consciousness. You can't fully connect with those behind you in development, and there's no one ahead to guide you. You're pioneering psychological territory.
Humanity's growing edge. The pressure that will eventually transform society itself. Here's Jung's complete picture of why awakened people struggle in modern life. You operate at a different frequency, see through society's games, find conventional success meaningless, can't return to unconscious comfort, and are essentially living in the wrong era for your level of consciousness. Jung wrote, "The struggle of the awakened in modern life isn't failure, but evolution. They represent what humanity is becoming, forced to exist in what humanity currently is." These struggles aren't separate, but interconnected aspects of a single phenomenon, consciousness expanding beyond the containers society provides for it. Each struggle reinforces the others, creating what Jung called comprehensive alienation from modern life. Yet Jung didn't see this as tragedy, but as necessity. He believed that the discomfort of awakened individuals in modern society creates the pressure for societal evolution. Your inability to function in unconscious structures highlights their limitations. Your struggle reveals what needs to change. Jung identified what he called the transformative function of misfits, those who can't adapt to current reality, force reality to adapt to them. Not through revolution, but through presence. Simply by existing as awakened beings in an unconscious world, you create ripples that eventually become waves of change. The practical implications Jung outlined are challenging but clear. Stop trying to fit into structures that weren't made for your consciousness. Stop expecting understanding from those who haven't awakened. Stop seeking validation from systems that can't recognize your value. Instead, focus on what Jung called parallel structures, creating new ways of living that match your consciousness, even if they exist outside mainstream society. If you're struggling to function in modern life, if you feel like an alien in your own world, you're not broken, you're evolved. Your struggle isn't personal failure, but collective evolution.
the growing pains of consciousness expanding beyond outdated structures. Subscribe and hit the notification bell to join others navigating this impossible position. To dive even deeper into Jung's revolutionary psychology and what it means